It was October 29th, 2024. The Flower had returned to Pittsburgh, and the Minnesota Wild defeat the Penguins 5-3 on October 29th in 2024. What happened in 2025? In the last meeting between the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins, let's find out. My name is Scott McGregor, and this is Penguins Postgame. Let's go, Pens Nation. You're locked in to Penguins hockey on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Sidney Crosby and the Penguins play here on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Hey, Showtime scores! The bingo game is ready to roll. Welcome to Penguins Postgame. I'm PPG for PGH, and you'd have to be here to believe it. Here is your host, Scott McGregor. Penguins and the Wild. Welcome in, Penguins fans. Welcome in, Wild fans. It's been a while since we've talked to each other. Minnesota Wild host the Penguins from the XL Energy Center in Minnesota, Minneapolis, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, St. Paul. We'll get to what's next for the Wild, what's next for the Penguins a little bit later in our show. But good evening, everybody, and welcome to an evening edition of Penguins Postgame on this Sunday, March 9th, 2024. Pens and the Wild. Let's jump right into things here because I want to let everyone know, as we did on the recap of the Golden Knights game, that we will be doing Bucks and Pucks a little bit later in our show as a replacement for our game puck of the game. My name is Scott McGregor. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the show here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, streaming later on the ice and behind the benches with our good buddy who is the host of that program, Thomas McGregor. His podcast will bring that to us live every Wednesday off day this season. We'll get into it all in a matter of moments. But first, time now to look at the coaches and the guys who got the start in net. This is game 64 of 82 for the Minnesota Wild overall. It is game number 29 in their homestand so far. And when you look at it, out of 82 games, 64 games complete, leave only, for the Minnesota Wild, they leave only 18 more games to go in this one. And with that said, speaking of that, let's keep that going here for a moment. Let's keep that going. The Penguins, we'll reiterate this a little bit later in the show as well, for the Penguins. The Penguins have now played in game 66 of the regular season, which means they now have 16 games left. But it's a 2-point party in the state of hockey for the Pittsburgh Penguins as they played in game number 34 on the road. All right. With that said, let's get to these head coaches. They are John Hynes for the Minnesota Wild and Mike Sullivan for the Pittsburgh Penguins. John Hynes, as we now get into our goaltending matchup, he would counter Mike Sullivan's starting goaltending matchup, which would be Tristan Jarry. Jarry making his first start since January 14th, 2025 in the NHL, or maybe that's 2024 last year, but regardless, it's his first start since January at the NHL level. And he put on quite an interesting show in this one. Backing up Tristan Jarry was Alex Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic got the start against the Vegas Golden Knights on Friday night. For the afternoon game, it's Tristan Jarry for the Penguins against the Flower, as Marc-Andre Fleury is in his farewell season, it looks like. And for the final time, but this time in the state of hockey, at the XL Energy Center, Marc-Andre Fleury would get the start for John Hynes, with Philip Gustafsson in at backup if needed. So it's 29 versus 35 in this one between head coaches John Hynes and Mike Sullivan. All right. Before we take the first break of the program, let's break down the penalties, starting with the Pittsburgh Penguins as we get into our period-by-period summary. Let's get into the penalties and the shots on goal per period as I have them up here. We'll get to the scoring, including how the power play goals came about in this game in just a little bit. And just like the last recording we did, the last recap we did, I should say, we will utilize what I have here on the NHL.com, regardless of how many faceoffs were taken in this game. We will utilize just for faceoff percentages, but the shots on goal will remain the same, and everything else also remaining the same as well. We're not going to focus too much on the power play percentage or the penalty kill percentage, but the Penguins were really good on that one, and we'll get to it all in the statistics segment later, following the shots, I should say following the goals in the game. But Fleury stops 19 shots from the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Wild's loss to Pittsburgh in likely final game against the Penguins. He won 3 Stanley Cups with the Penguins after being number 1 overall pick in the 2003 draft. We're going to get to it all and how it all shaped up in a matter of moments. But let's start with the penalties, because that's how this game kicked off. At the 15-minute, I should say at the 18-minute mark of the period, I should say, Matt Grzelcyk gets called for slashing, a 2-minute minor for slashing to Matt Grzelcyk against Brock Faber. Minnesota will go to the game's first power play of the game, but it took a while to get to the first power play of the game. But Minnesota will go to the game's first power play of the hockey game, rather. Matt Zuccarello would go a little bit later at 19 minutes and 22 seconds for interference against Chris Letang. And so the Penguins would see a little bit of 4-on-4 hockey, but their penalty kill does well to kill off that penalty to Matt Grzelcyk. And the Penguins go to the power play, heading into the second period of play. After 20 minutes of play, the Penguins and the Wild are out shooting the Penguins 10-7 at the end of the first period of play. No goals scored in the first period of play, so we move to the second period. And as we are going over the penalties, we will continue going over our penalty summary. Zuccarello for interference in the first period at 19 minutes and 22 seconds. And at 18 minutes, Matt Grzelcyk, 2 minutes for slashing. Evgeny Malkin gets the party started in the penalty box in the second period, 1 minute and 54 seconds in. And just after the Penguins had successfully killed off a penalty and gotten Minnesota to take a penalty, Malkin gives Minnesota a power play once again, but the Penguins are able to kill it off. Now, my apologies if I pronounce this man's name wrong, but Vladis Kolyachokhin. I'll say Vladis K. Sorry, Mr. Vladis, if I pronounced it wrong. If I pronounced the last name wrong, we're gonna go with. You know what? I'll go with VK. VK. Yeah, VK getting a 4-minute double minor for high sticking, 7 minutes and 23 seconds into the game. And that is the guy that wears the number 23 right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, this play went under review and could have been changed to a 2-minute minor for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Vladimir Kolyachenko. If I pronounce it wrong, sincerest apologies. Sincerest apologies. One name I do know how to say right, but I'll slow things down here. Of course, that was a 7-minute and 23-second time of the penalty for VK. The Penguins take another penalty at the 17-minute and 29-second mark of the second period. Their last penalty of the period. And that went to Sidney Crosby at the 17-minute and 29-second mark of the period. 2 minutes for slashing on Crosby. For Minnesota, it was Zach Bogensen going to the box for a interference call. 2 interference calls against Minnesota, 1 against Pittsburgh. 2 slashing, 1 high sticking, and 1 tripping call against Pittsburgh. Zach Bogenstein's goal. Not goal, penalty coming at 13 minutes and 24 seconds in. By now, the Penguins do connect on the power play at this point, but wrapping up our penalty summary here to take us to break with, once again, Evgeny Malkin going to the box, this time for interference. Yes, this time the penalty to Evgeny Malkin was interference, and this time it comes at the 12 minutes and 56-second mark of the period. Shots on goal for the second period and the third period, 10-6 in favor of the 10-6 in favor of the Minnesota Wild, and 10-9 also in favor of the Minnesota Wild. So the Wild were out shooting the Penguins for the longest time in the game. The Penguins only managed to muster a shot on goal. I should say, not a shot on goal. 9 shots on goal in the third period of play. And again, they trailed 20-13 at the end of 2 periods of play, but they had a goal. And we're going to get to the goals by, for the Penguins side, Sidney Crosby, who, as I was going to mention in the penalties, I might have forgotten to do that. He got called for slashing, got that second penalty against Pittsburgh for slashing. And of course, Penguins able to kill off, out of 6 attempts on the power play, Penguins able to kill off 5 penalties against the Minnesota Wild for the season. They are 6-6. Well, they were 6-6. They were now 6-7 after the goal let in by Tristan Jarry, the only goal that was let in, and that was on the power play. We'll get to it all in just a few moments. Reminder, the remainder of the game stats leading to our shots on goal tally at 30-22, how the goals came about in the second period and third period. Power play and penalty kill in terms of opportunities, face-off percentages, penalty minutes, hits, blocked shots, giveaways, and takeaways, plus the 3 stars of the game, come your way next. And a little later, after the 3 stars of the game, we got the play of the game on the way as well, and the shake of the game. Want to also touch on some action in today's hockey world, but all that coming up during the play of the game and the shake of the game, which come your way 1 segment from now. When we return, 3 stars of the game, how this game ended the way that it ended, with goals from the second period and third period scoring, because there were no goals scored in the first period. Plus, the stats of the game, and I said the 3 stars of the game are also coming up as well. You're listening to Pittsburgh Penguins Hockey on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and we will be right back with more from our game in Minneapolis, Minnesota, between the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Stick with us.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches. Welcome back to Penguins postgame. Penguins and the Wild. The Wild fall 3-1 to the Pittsburgh Penguins in what is likely the last game against the Pittsburgh Penguins that the Flower, Marc-Andre Fleury, will be playing in his NHL career and of his last NHL season. With this result, the Penguins have tied the season series against the Minnesota Wild. But how did it come to be? Early on in our Penguins post-game coverage, we talked about how the penalties came to be. But we haven't talked about the scoring yet. And we'll get to the stats as well as the 3 stars of the game once we are through with that. So without further ado, as we remember, as I said earlier, no goals were scored in the first period, so we are left with the second period to kick things off. And in that period, during the penalty taken by Zach Bogenstein, Zach B. Zach, if I pronounce your last name wrong, my apologies. If I was pronouncing it wrong during my penalty go-around, I apologize as well if I pronounced it wrong. But here we go with our scoring, as it starts with some power play performance coming on the Penguin side. Evgeny Malkin with his third career goal against his former teammate Marc-Andre Fleury. It's a goal on the power play, Malkin's 13th goal of the season. Christopher Letang, another former teammate of the Flower, picking up an assist. His 17th assist of the season. Matt Grzelcyk picking up his 30th assist of the season. Penguins go up 1-0 over the Minnesota Wild. It is at the 15-minute and 22-second mark that the Penguins score on the power play. A PPG for PGH. The only power play goal the Penguins would score in this one. Out of 2 opportunities they got, we'll get to that more in the stats for a second, or I should say in a second or two. But speaking of former teammates scoring, on one another, after 40 minutes, the Penguins have taken a 1-0 lead on the Wild. They would make it a 2-0 lead when the captain of the Penguins, Sidney Crosby, picks up his 20th goal of the season. And yes, he also now has 3 career goals against his former teammate, Marc-Andre Fleury, the Flower. Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, he does get another goal as well. That was an empty net goal. That wasn't against Marc-Andre Fleury. That was in the empty net goal. When the Wild found a way to get on the board when the Penguins were challenging not challenging, they didn't challenge, but they were relentless when a penalty wasn't called during the Ryan Hartman goal, which we'll get to in a second. On the Crosby goal, which is Crosby's 20th goal of the season, Erik Karlsson picking up assist number 38 of the season. Ricard Raquel picking up his 25th assist of the season. At 9 minutes and 21 seconds in, the Penguins go up 2-0, leading the Wild 2-0. On the penalty, yes, I said on the penalty, to Evgeny Malkin at interference at the 12-minute and 56-second mark of the period. 2 minutes later and 54 seconds later, I should say, Ryan Hartman says, anything Gino can do, I can do better. Well, okay, maybe he can't do it better than Gino can, but that's up for debate. I won't debate that. One thing you need to know about me, Penguins fans and Wild fans, one thing you need to know about me, I don't like to debate things, even when they are up for debate. I really don't like to debate much. So I'm not really that much of a debater. Anywho, continuing on, that's Ryan Hartman's 8th goal of the season. It is a PPG for MIN, which is the short form for Minnesota. Jared Spurgeon, Jared S, I'll say. Jared, if I pronounce your last name wrong, I apologize. Jared Spurgeon, 17th assist of the season for Jared. And Marcus Johansson picking up his 18th assist of the season on the lone goal, which was a power play goal by the Minnesota Wild. That cut the Penguins' 2-goal lead to a 1-goal lead, 14 minutes and 55 seconds into the third period. We are in a 1-goal game in the third period. John Hines has pulled the flower. Marc-Andre Fleury has been pulled. It was a foot race, as I saw on some of the highlights before we actually came on, including that Ryan Hartman goal that agree to disagree with the coach, Mike Sullivan of the Penguins, and everybody in the Penguins organization. I was kind of frustrated about that too, but agree to disagree. It didn't get called. There should have been a penalty that was called. And that was one of the reasons before we came on to the show. I wanted to check the highlights myself because I caught the game on the Penguins radio network, WXDX FM Pittsburgh, an iHeart radio station, 1059 the X. And given the highlights I saw from Sportsnet, they didn't exactly give me a clear look at what the Penguins were so upset about as to why there shouldn't have been a penalty. Maybe there was one look that could tell me why they were upset, but there was a clear-cut penalty that was not called. And that's why the Penguins were furious about that call. But it is what it is. A power play goal resulted. And even if the Penguins did challenge this to see if there was indeed a penalty, I don't think they would have got it, which also means that Minnesota would get another opportunity on the power play. I don't think they would have gotten it. The last goal to be tallied came at the 18-minute and 47 second mark. The 18-minute and 47 second mark. That belongs to Sidney Crosby. 21st goal of the season for Sidney Crosby. Goaltender Tristan Jarry doesn't have an assist yet in the season. He picks up one, and his first of the season. On Crosby's 21st goal of the season, as he had a long pass from goaltender Tristan Jarry that he picked up in what was a foot race to the empty net. Crosby put it in the empty net. He's able to beat, I forget who it was when I was hearing the highlights, but I forget who it was who was running this down. Let me just bring up the goal visualizer. We're not going to show it to you on shared screen, but let me just bring that up for you here. Who is it that is chasing Crosby down? Put it in the net. It's number 7. Who's 7? Who is number 7 here? Is that Spurgeon? No, Spurgeon is 46. Who is it? Who was it? Let's see. Who was it? Let's see if we can figure that out. Who was it? Number 7, who was chasing down. He was chasing down Sidney Crosby, looking to make sure Crosby did not get a goal. But he did. Who's number 7? Who was it? Oh yes, it was Brock. It was Brock Faber, and you could see that Brock he was not happy as the goal went in. He was not happy. He broke his stick, clearly frustrated. But again, you can see Tristan Jarry, he comes out to play the puck here, is able to get it past he's able to get it past Foligno and Vinny Hinostroza, the former Penguin. Oh, actually, no, that's not Vinny Hinostroza. That's number 12. Sorry. Matt Boldy. He's able to get it past Matt Boldy and Foligno of the Minnesota Wild. Matt Foligno, or however you say the name. Sorry about that if I don't get it right. And the end result, it becomes Brock versus Crosby. It becomes Brock versus Crosby, and Crosby's going to win the race here. Put stick on puck and just put it on target, put it in the empty net. And you could see that the frustration on Brock Faber's, Brock Faber, you could see the frustration on his face as the puck went in. Crosby just, he kind of beats him clean here, I think. But if you were going to tell me, and not going to quote the old 2-9er on this, but Borky, you made my day after Brian Metzer read you my question. I honestly didn't know that it had been a while since someone asked you how you experience, road games, especially games like this one. Just to be clear, I was hoping that you were enjoying the game that you were calling, and I also wanted your thoughts on Tristan Jarry's performance. You delivered regardless. I also wanted to see if you had any thoughts on Gino's performance, especially after the first power play goal and only power play goal by the Pittsburgh Penguins, scored by Evgeny Malkin. So just to be clear, I was talking about both Jarry and Malkin's performances. Just to be clear, but shout out to Mets, shout out to Brian Metzer, and shout out to Phil Borg, the old 2-9er. Really fun segment to be a part of. I look forward to trying to tweet in as many times as I can. I might not do it when the games are on the TV side, but if I can't get to the TV side, specifically if I can't watch it on Sportsnet, or I just decide to tune into the radio site, perhaps I will send in a tweet or two to hashtag Penguins Live. And a reminder not to quote the Penguins Radio Network or Brian Metzer again, but Penguin fans and any fans, rather, who want to get in on the action, listening to the game on the Penguins Radio Network, you can tweet Phil Borg, the old 2-9er, after every second period after every second period in the game goes final, and each and every second intermission, unless Brian Metzer is joined by Michelle Cracchiolo of Penn's Inside Scoop, or perhaps the arm dog, Colby Armstrong. With that being said, the Penguins win the game 3-1. They even the season series with the Minnesota Wild, tying it up. And it's a bittersweet moment even before the game. You saw, if you saw it on X, or as I call it, Twitter, you saw that Evgeny Malkin and Marc-Andre Fleury, you saw Evgeny Malkin and Marc-Andre Fleury, they did some jousting before the game. And I also saw a photo the Penguins posted of Dan Potash. Shout out to you, Dan. Again, same thing for the radio and the TV side. If I can't make it into the game, I will find my way to find time to watch the game on the TV side when I can see the game or when I can tune into the radio side. But shout out to Dan Potash. I think you might have been starting something though, Dan. Dan, I think you might have been starting something when you were pointing at Marc-Andre Fleury in the photo. Again, I don't know what it is, but oh my, we've been running for a while. Oh my. I haven't even gotten to the 3 stars yet. Okay. So clearly we went off track. Let's get to the rest of our game stats before we go off track any further. And let's get to the 3 stars before we close out this segment. Because by any means, this show is going to be 1 hour, and I do want to make sure that we get in Bucks and Pucks. I do want to make sure we get that in. So without further delay, let's get into it. As I mentioned when I mentioned the shots on goal by period, I mentioned it before the break. The Minnesota Wild outshot the Penguins 30-22. Penguins finished the game 1 for 2 on the power play. Same can be said for the Minnesota Wild penalty kill. 1 for 2. They kill off a penalty and let a goal in on the power play. On the power play note for them, they go 1 for 6 on the power play. Penguins go 6 for 7. Well, actually, I should say 5 for 6. They go 5 for 6. As they are able to kill off 5 of the 6 penalties they took in this game. They finish with a face-off percentage, the Penguins do, of 52.3%. Minnesota just about 48%, finishing off with face-offs. To date, they actually finish off with 47.7%, so just about 48% good in the face-off dot. Block shots, the Penguins winning that battle 24-20. They were out hit by the Minnesota Wild 20-17. They led in penalty minutes with 12, Minnesota with 4 penalty minutes. 18 giveaways by the Penguins, 13 by the Wild, 4 takeaways by the Wild, and 8 for the Penguins. 8 takeaways for the Penguins. Alrighty. Now that we've gotten things a little bit back on track, let's get down to the 3 stars of the game before we take this next commercial break. Normally I would bring you what they are brought to you by, but we've already run a little bit off of schedule here. So let's keep this thing going on schedule. But again, yeah, you know what? We'll just do it. We'll just do it anyways. On the Penguins Radio Network, the 3 stars of the game, which we're getting to right now, are brought to you by your neighborhood Ford stores in Pittsburgh. Ford cars, trucks, and SUVs are the official vehicles of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The 3rd star, of course, we are not sponsored by Ford, the official car, truck, and SUV of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Nor are we sponsored by Rivers Casino. Pittsburgh's entertainment destination. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That is also the sponsor for the Penguins Radio Network of the play of the game that we will get to after our 3 stars of the game and after the next commercial break, which we will owe you it. So we will get there after we're done with the 3 stars of the game. Your 3rd star went to Jared Spurgeon. 1 assist, 1 point, no goals. Your 2nd star went to Penguins goaltender Tristan Jarry. Save percentage of .967. Goals against average of 1. And your 1st star went to the captain. The captain of your Pittsburgh Penguins. 2 goals, no assists, 2 points. Sidney Crosby is your 1st star of the game. Sidney Crosby, Tristan Jarry, and Jared Spurgeon. I kind of would have done a Pittsburgh sandwich with sandwiching Jared Spurgeon right in the middle between Jarry and Crosby. I like what I saw from Tristan Jarry. I really did. Now, I don't want to say he's got his confidence back. Because I want to be sure this is the kind of Tristan Jarry that we have been waiting for Penguins fans. I want to be sure this is the Tristan Jarry Penguins fans have been waiting for. I want to be sure. So with that being said, when Penguins postgame continues, we'll get to the play of the game. We'll get to the shake of the game. Bucks and Pucks will be coming up in 1 segment time, as well as our set the scene for Golden Knights and Penguins, as well as the next 5 games for both the Penguins and the Wild. And of course, we want to get into the shake of the game. That will follow the play of the game and a look around at the NHL action on this Sunday night. Of course, this game was on Sunday afternoon from Minneapolis, Minnesota. But it had a late puck drop. Considering it was supposed to start at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little bit of a late puck drop, but 3:30 p.m. was the exact time it was supposed to start. With that all being said, play of the game, shake of the game, Sunday NHL recap so far, when Penguins postgame continues in a moment. Bucks and Pucks. Setting the stage for Golden Knights versus Penguins, round 2 is on the way. Round 2 is on the way between the Pens and the Golden Knights, and we will set the scene in 1 segment time. 1 segment and 1 break time. We will be setting the scene for the Golden Knights and the Penguins from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Be sure to stick with us so you don't miss that. Back in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down. Nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams, listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. Back here on Penguins Postgame, my name is Scott McGregor. I am the host of the program here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast. Hello, everyone listening on the ice and behind the benches. Great to have you with us. Whether you're tuning in audio-wise on the ice and behind the benches or even on YouTube, doesn't matter. Penguins beat the Wild in game 66 of their season, game 34 on the road of their season. They are down to the final 16 games of the season right now, and will be down to 15 games when they play the Golden Knights on Tuesday night. A little bit later. Of course, we'll get into that a bit later in the show. And I should say in one segment in the show. To add to that topic, it's game 29 of the 82-game season at home for the Minnesota Wild. But for the entire season, it's game 64. And the Minnesota Wild now have 18 games left to play in the season series. No, not season series. In the 2024-2025 NHL regular season. Time now, before we get to the NHL Sunday look around so far that we want to get to, as that will set our stage for Bucks and Pucks. And of course, setting the stage for that, of course, will set our stage for the next 5 matchups for the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll get that all to you a little bit later. But we want to get to the shake of the game as well. And so without any further ado, let's continue rocking this show. Let's continue rocking this program with our play of the game. The play of the game on the Penguins radio network is brought to you by Rivers Casino, Pittsburgh's entertainment destination. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We are not sponsored by it, but it is brought to you by on the Penguins radio network. It is brought to you by Rivers Casino, Pittsburgh's entertainment destination. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. If you have questions or concerns about true gambling or somebody close to you in Ontario, please contact Connex Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. And again, just like we said with the United States side for the Pittsburgh end, you must be 18 years or older to play. you must be 18 years or older to play. All right, let's get to the play of the game. And I'm going to go with the goal by Sidney Crosby in the third period that put Minnesota on notice. And despite the Penguins taking a penalty that they paid for on a Ryan Hartman goal that the Penguins wanted a penalty on but didn't get it, I'll leave it at that. I really like what I saw when watching the highlights before we came on to the show here today. I really like what I saw from Sidney Crosby. And it was an interesting pass from Rickard Rakell to Erik Karlsson, EK65. But I hasten to add, even though the Penguins season is going in a downward spiral for a little bit because they are not in a good spot when it comes to the NHL standings. They are not in a good spot when it comes to when it comes down, they are not in a good spot when it comes down to the playoffs and especially the wild card. But they are ahead of the Buffalo Sabres. They are ahead of the Buffalo Sabres and behind the Philadelphia Flyers. So if they could get a winning streak going, perhaps things could be turning around for this Pittsburgh Penguins team. Right now, they are at the bottom of the division. Out of a rank of 1 to 8 in each division, they are number 8 in the division. For the league, you heard Paul Stagger will talk about this in the pregame show. The Pittsburgh Penguins, they have jumped over the Seattle Kraken and currently are 27th in the league right now. But the Kraken hopped over the Penguins before the Penguins got their win today. So it's been a quick swap. The Penguins were in 27th place heading into the day. They were actually in 28th place heading into the day. At the end of the day, so far, they are '27th in the league right now. And the Seattle Kraken, by the way, as we're going to get into the NHL look around in just a second, they were in action against the Capitals. I'm guessing because they lost, they remain 28th in the NHL right now. But we'll see how things transpire with the rest of them. Play of the game, once again, is going to go to the captain, Sidney Crosby. His first goal of the game. 20th goal of the season. And a huge shout out to head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. 400 wins for head coach Mike Sullivan. Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan. Huge shout out to Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan. He's now got 400 wins. Wow. If I had a nickel for every time I saw a Penguins win, just being theoretical here, if I had a nickel for every time the Penguins won a game under head coach Mike Sullivan, I would say Yes, I would say the Penguins put on quite a show. They put on quite a show in this one. I mean, yeah, 3-1, that's not a big margin. They didn't exactly light up Marc-Andre Fleury, but they did whatever they had to do to win the game, and that's all that matters. Speaking of the NHL Sunday look around so far, let's get into it now. Our final scores so far include the Rangers dropping a snowball. Well, not really a snowball. They lost 7-3 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Carolina Hurricanes picked up a dub against the Winnipeg Jets, beating the Jets 4-2. The Philadelphia Flyers, who were in action, they were defeated, They were defeated by the New Jersey Devils 3-1. The Flyers were defeated by the Devils 3-1. In his quest for history to break the Great One's goal record, Alexander Ovechkin scores again. This time it's an empty net goal to get the Capitals past the Kraken in Washington. 4-2 the final in DC. Going on right now in the second period, we've got the Stars leading the Vancouver Canucks 1-0. Thomas Harley with the only goal so far, his 12th goal of the season. The Vegas Golden Knights, who will see the Penguins on Tuesday night, are playing the Los Angeles Kings and trailing the Kings right now 5-3. That game in the third period. And also in the second period right now, the Ducks leading the Islanders 1-0. Sam Colangelo with his 5th goal of the season. And that's the difference right now in the second period. 1-0 Ducks. Same as 1-0 Stars over the Canucks. And we have a 5-3 score between the Golden Knights and the Kings. In case you missed our final scores before we come back to talking about our game, Devils beat the Flyers 3-1. Kraken fell to the Capitals 4-2. Alexander Ovechkin going for history against Wayne Gretzky, trying to break Gretzky's goal scoring record. He's down to single digits to do it. Single digits to go. He's now got, well, I don't know how many he's got, but he's got 33 goals on the season right now. But he doesn't have far to go right now. Anywho, moving on. The Hurricanes beat the Jets 4-2, and the Blue Jackets beat the Rangers 7-3. Those are our finals so far. A few more finals, I should say, coming up, but 2 of them are in the second period right now in a 1-goal hockey game. One of them is a 2-goal hockey game, and that's the Golden Knights taking on the Kings in the third period. Can the Kings hold on and beat the Golden Knights. We shall see. All right, back to our game. Play of the game, 3 stars of the game breakdown done. Let's get to the shake of the game. And again, in case you missed it on the Golden Knight recap, game puck of the game will resume. It will resume on our program when the Golden Knights take on the Penguins on Tuesday night. But in place of it for the Wild will be the Bucks and Pucks segment, where we will go into the MLB to see how the Buccos and the Blue Jays, as well as the Phillies, did in their spring training action, as well as some other MLB scores. And then we will wrap things up by setting the scene for Golden Knights and the Penguins on Tuesday night. And of course, that will also set the scene for the other 5 games for the Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. And so without further ado, even though we are not doing the game puck of the game, players who receive honorable mentions during the shake of the game segment go into the running for the game puck of the game. We're going to start with our Pittsburgh Penguins. Penguins snapping the 4-game losing streak, depending on how many games it was that they've lost. If I look at it, we've lost quite a few actually. If I look at it, we've lost quite a few as of late, but shows what I know. But shows what I know about it. I haven't been around the game long enough, covering the game, that is. But I have watched these games happen. I haven't really covered them, especially not on a podcast like this one. But shows what I know. How many games we've lost. But we ended a losing streak today. And one of the recipients of the shake of the game, which is inspired by the Milkshake Factory ad from Jake Gensel, now run by Brian Rust, since Rusty is still a Pittsburgh Penguin and Jake Gensel is a Tampa Bay Lightning player right now. Anytime Brian Rust scores, Penguins fans receive half off Rusty shakes the next day at the Milkshake Factory. Brian did not score in this one. Brian Rust did not score in this one. But Rusty is actually going to get a shake of the game from me, because I like what I saw from Brian Rust. I really do. I like his discipline. I like how he was not caught and not sent to the box. I do like that. I really do. But my second shake of the game is going to go to Tristan Jarry. Dude, we haven't seen you since January start an actual NHL game for the black and gold, and you come out and up until the third period, 14 minutes and 54 seconds into the third period, up until that point, Jarry, my friend, You, yes, that's right, you, Tristan Jarry, stopped everything right from the get-go. You stopped everything that came your way. All 29 shots saved. He did give up one goal. That was on shot 30. It was the power play goal to Ryan Hartman. And Penguins fans, I understand that you guys are probably wanting a penalty on that one. I would have wanted it too. I would have been happy if they got one. But remember, if the Penguins challenge and they don't get it, Minnesota is going to get a power play. And where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? Well, we're going to go back on the penalty kill again. The rest of Jarry's stats are history there. Some honorable mentions. How about we give it to goal scorer Gino Machino, Evgeny Malkin. How about maybe the way that we saw a performance? How about the performance, I should say, in terms of shots? How about the performance by the captain, Sidney Crosby? Going to give him an honorable mention too. And how about Tommy Novak? 4 blocks by Tommy Novak. He was a blocking machine. 4 blocks for Tommy Novak. And this is just his second game. Meanwhile, for Connor Dewar, who came over from the Maple Leafs, and Connor Timmins, who came over from the Maple Leafs as well, it's their first game. They've had literally not a lot of time to get acclimated with this Pittsburgh Penguin hockey team. So, do I like what I see from them? Wait till the Vegas game. Wait till the Vegas game in Pittsburgh on Tuesday night, and I'll tell you more about that. Moving on to the Wild for the shake of the game. Only one. No. I did 2 for Pittsburgh. I gotta do 2 for for Minnesota. I was sitting on just one shake of the game for Minnesota, but I got to give 2. The first one is going to go to Marc-Andre Fleury. Gave up a goal on the power play and a goal at even strength, 2 goals in general. 19 saves, 21 shots. He stopped 19 of Pittsburgh's shots. Ends the game with a save percentage of .905. Only played 57 minutes and 35 seconds. Our second recipient of the shake of the game, that is going to go to the goal scorer, Ryan Hartman. Really like what I saw from him. He looked like he was ready to play. I'm not saying everybody else didn't look like they were ready to play. I'm not saying that. Just want to be clear. I'm not saying that. because there were a couple of other Minnesota Wild players who were testing Tristan Jarry but unable to crack him, like Matt Boldy or Matt Zuccarello. He tried to crack Jarry, didn't do it in 6 shots. Wow, I mean, you take 6 shots on net a night, I would tell you you're doing something right. Eventually, one of them's going to go in. Like, the more shots that you take, I think the better you're going to be in playing hockey. But that's my opinion. Honorable mentions to Brock Farber, Middleton. We're going to go to this guy here, Jake Middleton, as well. And how about we give some love to Frederic Gaudreau. How about we give some love to this man, Frederic Gaudreau. He had an interesting game as well for this one. All right, the shake of the game has come and gone. Time to set the scene with Bucks and Pucks. And set the scene for Golden Knights and Penguins. We'll do so right after this from our friends over at Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter one song at a time. We're going to take 3 minutes and 30 seconds to come back from that word. When we return, Bucks and Pucks. How did the Buccos do? How did the Blue Jays fare? What happened with the Phillies? What happened elsewhere in the major leagues? And we set the stage for Golden Knights Penguins round 2 down in Pittsburgh. So don't go anywhere. Penguins postgame. Wild and the Penguins, the afternoon showdown in the state of hockey, wraps up right after this.
What a busy traffic on this Friday evening. I am almost stuck in this traffic for the last 40 minutes. And there is no way, I think, for me to get to the show. The Sienna T Radio Song Bank, which is going to start very shortly. It's one of my favorite shows. And my, what a way to wind down for the weekend. Perfect 2 hours of fun-filled music. And she has so many great features. Sound of Music, Undercover, Foreign Exchange. Name that tune. And the big wheel that she spins. For Who's That? Or Where Are We? We cannot forget about the international stage. I have never come across such a great show in my life. I think I will have to press hard on my accelerator and go as fast as I can to get home in time. Wow! Wow! Look! I made it! I am almost there. Sienna T. Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
Hello? How are you, my friend? Why? What's the matter? Why feeling bored and lonely? Look! Look at me! I am always happy. The only reason? I can tell you, it's because I listen to Sienna T Radio. All the best shows you can think of. The Melting Pot, the Cosmopolitan Culture Club, and the Song Bank. There are also many more new shows to come. Please make sure to visit her website at http://siennat.wordpress.com/siennat-radio. Oh, now I can hear you more cheerful. Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Penguins knock off the Wild 3-1. They even the season series with the Minnesota Wild this afternoon in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in St. Paul. And in response to that, not only do they even the season series, but the Penguins snap their losing streak that they were currently on. And they do so hoping to turn things around as we enter the end of one of the final months of the 2024-2025 season. So with that all being said, it is time for us to set the scene for the next 5 matchups for the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Before we do, however, I mentioned this in our post-game show of the Golden Knights. We didn't have time to do it, so I want to make good on my promise and get that to you just before we start setting up the scene and before we get to the Bucks and Pucks. But minus the attendance record of how many people attended in this game, our lines persons were James Tobias, Mark S., and our referee officials were Michael Markovic and Francis Charon. James Tobias and Mark S. were the linesmen. They were the linesmen. And again, and this game started late. It started at 3:53 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:53 p.m. Central Time, and of course, 12:53 p.m. Pacific Time, 1:53 p.m. Mountain Time, 8:53 p.m. UK Time, 9:53 p.m. France Time. Game wrapped up at 5:17 p.m. Central Time, 6:17 p.m. Eastern, 3:17 p.m. Pacific, 4:17 p.m. Mountain, 10:17 p.m. in the UK, and 11:17 p.m. in France. And with all this being said, I hope fans enjoyed the show and have enjoyed it so far, because it's time for us to break it in. Who's next for Pittsburgh? Who's next for Minnesota? We'll get to that in just a quick second. But an update in the NHL as we get into our Bucks and Pucks segment to start us off. The Vegas Golden Knights get one more close. They get actually, I should say, a few goals closer, but the Kings take care of business. 6-5. They defeat the Golden Knights 6-5. Outshooting the Golden Knights 35-32. Meanwhile, ongoing and headed to the third period, the Ducks are on the power play, leading 2-0. Drew Helson picking up a goal to add to the Ducks' already 1-0 lead. The Dallas Stars, thanks to former Penguin Michael Granlund and also former Shark Michael Granlund, have a 2-1 lead. They have a 2-1 lead on the Vancouver Canucks after Derek Forbort scored his first goal of the season. And for Derek Forbort, that is his first goal of the season. And that will be career goal number 18 of his NHL career. Congratulations to him. There's always time in the season to get your first goal in the season. But this one has cut the lead that was 1-0. That actually tied it up. And then we saw former Penguin and former Shark Michael Granlund with his 16th goal of the season quickly give the Stars back the lead late in the second period of play. To the diamond as we continue Bucks and Pucks. The Tampa Bay Rays were defeated in battle by the Toronto Blue Jays today on March 9th, 2025. 13-9, the Blue Jays beat the Tampa Bay Rays. Woo! I love it. You know what else you'll love? Okay, maybe Pittsburgh fans won't like this. The Tigers beat the Pirates 5-3. The Orioles, who were in a split squad game, were taken down by the Philadelphia Phillies 12-2. Woo! If you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan, even though your team lost, even though your team lost 3-1 to the Devils, you'd be happy to know the Philadelphia Phillies took it to the Orioles and beat the Orioles 12-2. But spring training doesn't matter. Well, the Orioles can feel a little bit happier as they were able to knock off the Twins in their other split squad game 4-3. Meanwhile, the Boston Red Sox knock off the Atlanta Braves 7-3. The Miami Marlins beat the Astros 10-6. The Athletics fall to the Diamondbacks 7-5. 7-6 the final as the Mets beat the Nationals. The Yankees also fell in their game 6-5. Athletics were in a split squad game, as were the Diamondbacks. The Athletics fell 7-5 to the Diamondbacks, but they defeated the Dodgers 7-5. Meanwhile, elsewhere for the Diamondbacks, they pull off an interesting win in their split squad game. They won both of them, beating the Rangers 14-1. The Mariners beat the Rockies 8-1. Guardians need only one run to beat the White Sox 1-0. 5-2 the final, the Royals over the Brewers. Giants also in split squad action. They beat the Padres 7-4. They also beat the Cubs 8-6. And the Angels picking up a dub against the Cincinnati Reds at 4-1. All right. Now it's time to set the scene. Let's set the scene. And this is our last segment of the show. This would be right after the game puck of the game, but it is in place of the game puck of the game for this episode of Penguins Postgame. Penguins and the Minnesota Wild. We'll bring it all to you. Let's get into it, shall we? I think we shall. Let's get to it, shall we? And we'll start with the Minnesota Wild. I was about to say the Vegas Golden Knights, but the Golden Knights are going head to head against the Penguins on Tuesday night. So we'll get to the Penguins in a second. Let's start with the Wild. The Wild are done with the Penguins for the 2024-2025 season. And they will next be in action on Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, when they take on Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche. That ought to be a good one between the Wild and the Avalanche. Game time is 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. From there, as they're currently on a homestand. They're currently on a homestand. So their homestand, I believe, if I heard it right from the old 2-9er Phil Borg, that's like an 8-game homestand, it looks like. Yes. And it began with the Penguins coming into town. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games are left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, actually, I should say 6 games are left because it's a 7-game homestand. Maybe it's not an 8-game homestand. Maybe I wasn't counting it right. Anywho, the homestand continues with the Avalanche on Tuesday night. The Rangers are in Minneapolis on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Blues will be in Minnesota on Saturday, March 15th. Same time as the Avalanche and Rangers game. Then the Kings will be in town on Monday, March 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. On Wednesday, March 19th, the Seattle Kraken are in Minneapolis at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central, and 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. So it's Colorado up next, followed by the Rangers, the Blues, the Kings, and the Kraken. Speaking of the Blues, they're up next for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Only the Penguins will play the Blues on Thursday night. Who are they playing on Tuesday night? Well, they're playing a team that they played on Friday night. That's right, ladies and gents. The Pittsburgh Penguins will open up a 5-game homestand starting Tuesday night against the Vegas Golden Knights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Same time for the St. Louis Blues on Thursday night. Whether or not we record the show after the game, after the Blues, that will be an episode 4, Season 4 of Sports for Beginners. Our recap of the Blues and the Penguins will be our episode for this week, Friday, March 14th, 2025. Season 4 will have episode 7 with the Blues and the Penguins leading the charge. As the recap gets going, recap of Penguins postgame comes your way on Monday, March 17th, 2025, for the recap of the game between the Devils and the Penguins at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain Time. (8 p.m. in the UK, 9 p.m. in France time. The Devils are in Pittsburgh. And that's followed up by the New York Islanders on Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. So you can't get rid of Penguins postgame that easily. We'll be having a show on Monday, then a show probably on Tuesday, maybe on Wednesday. You never know. But it will be the Islanders recap probably on a Wednesday, maybe a Tuesday night. You don't know. We'll see. Friday night, the Jackets are in town on March 21st. That ought to be a good one. That ought to be a good one. That ought to be a good one. Between the Jackets and the Pens. Still a lot of teams left to play the Penguins in their season series. But the season series for teams I mentioned coming up in the next 5, not including the Blues or the Devils, season series are coming to an end this month. The Islanders, the Jackets, the Panthers, the Lightning, the Sabres, and the Senators. All those season series, unless we see Buffalo on the April schedule. I don't see Buffalo on the April schedule. So, their season series wraps up this month. Next month, the Penguins will wrap up a season series with the St. Louis Blues, Dallas Stars, start a season series with the Chicago Blackhawks, and wrap it up. They'll wrap up with the Devils, the Bruins, and then the Capitals to close things out. With that all said and done, our next Penguins post-game show comes your way Wednesday or Tuesday night. Stay tuned to find out. But one thing's for sure, it will be coming following Golden Knights versus Penguins. Last time the Golden Knights played the Penguins, they shut out the Penguins 4-0. And you can hear that recap available right now on Sports for Beginners. It will be available, as so many other games will be available, on a Penguins Wednesday hockey program coming up later on a to-be-determined Pittsburgh Penguins Wednesday off day. My name is Scott McGregor. That will do it for 2025-2024 season series between Minnesota and Pittsburgh. It ends in a tie. We'll see if the Penguins can get some sweet taste of revenge against the Vegas Golden Knights on Tuesday night. I will talk to you then for Penguins postgame. Blues and the Penguins on Thursday. And it will be episode 7 of season 4 as a Penguins postgame show this Friday, March 14th, 2025. Details on that show to follow. Enjoy this 2-point party on Fifth Avenue from the state of hockey in Minnesota, St. Paul. The Penguins beat the Wild 3-1. They evened the season series in what is likely Marc-Andre Fleury's last game against the Penguins and last game of his NHL career against the Penguins and his NHL season. Wishing you all the best, Marc-Andre Fleury, if this is indeed your last season playing hockey. My name is Scott McGregor. That will do it for Penguins postgame. So until we talk again, Penguins fans, remember, we say loud and proud, let's go Pens. We will talk to you after the Golden Knights and the Penguins. See you then. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. You've just listened to Pittsburgh Penguins hockey on the Sports for Beginners podcast. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners or visit the official Sports for Beginners podcast website. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay tuned. And remember that it is not goodbye, it is until next time. And you'd have to be here to believe it.